Right, good morning everybody. I think we'll make a start now. The cameras and microphones are automatically shut off and we will be recording this session, which we will put on our website in due course. There are two of us presenting this morning. I'm Zena Key, Pensions Manager at NILGOSC, and my co-presenter is Jenna Fisher, Services Manager. We're going to be covering the Department for Communities consultation on amendments to the statutory underpin and what those implications are for employers. Could I have the next slide, please? Just before we start, it's really just a caveat that this presentation is based on our understanding of the consultation document. And of course, by the time the consultation finishes and the outcome is known and the regulations are finally made, it may end up slightly different from what we're discussing this morning. But what we're talking about is what's in the consultation document. Okay, next slide. So what are we going to talk about? We're going to split it into two sections. I'll cover the background, the Department for Communities proposals, what they're actually talking about in the consultation, and then Jenna will come in and she'll explain what we really need from employers to be able to implement this. We'll take time at the end to answer any questions. There is a Q&A that's open, so if you have any questions, please post those and then we'll go through them at the end. Okay, so the background. Could I have the next slide, please? Thank you. Okay, so the background to this is on the 1st of April 2015, the department introduced a new career average revalued earnings scheme to the local government pension scheme, and this really replaced the old final salary scheme. And what it meant was that going forward, people would build up some pension each year that would go into their pension account, a little bit like a savings account, and it gets revalued at the end of the year. So over their time in this scheme, they build up pension each year, and at the end, when they come to retire, they have a lump of pension in their pension account. That is quite different from how the final salary scheme worked, where in the final salary scheme, you build up your membership through your working life, and at the end, when you come to retire, your pension is calculated on your final salary. So it really removes that final salary element. Now, what has normally happened in pension schemes whenever there have been changes to how benefits are calculated, there have been protections introduced, usually for older members. And the reason that you have these protections is because someone that's quite close to retirement doesn't have a lot of time to make up any shortfall in their pension, should the changes have any impact or negative impact. And what was introduced in the local government scheme to protect older members was something known as the underpin. It applied to anyone who was aged 55 or over on the 31st of March 2012, so a bit before the introduction of the new scheme. And they also had to be active in the new scheme on the day it started, on the 1st of April 2015. So that really meant you had, if you like, these protections ran for someone for 10 years. So they ended in March 2022. So it was a 7-year period. The protections were objected to by some members of the firefighter scheme and also the judiciary. And in December 2018, the Court of Appeal found that the younger members in the public sector schemes had been unlawfully discriminated against. This was basically age discrimination. The government then came out and announced there would be legislative changes to all public service schemes. And the reason it applied to all public service schemes was that they all had similar protections, not necessarily the same as our underpin, but certainly protections that protected this older cohort of people. Okay, could I have the next slide, please? So what is the underpin? The existing underpin says that when somebody comes to retire, NILGOSC will compare for the period from the 1st of April 2015 to the 31st of March 22, the value of the pension that they've built up in the care scheme against what they could have built up had the final salary scheme continued. and then we pay the higher amount. And if you find that what would have been in the final salary scheme would have been higher, that is paid as a top-up amount into their care account. So they don't get final salary, they get a top-up benefit to bring them up to that level. Now, the accrual rate in the final salary scheme was a 60th. That meant someone built up a 60th their pay. In the care scheme, it's a 49th. So someone builds up pension at a much higher rate. So actually for the final salary benefit to be better, the pay would have to be 17% higher than it is in the care scheme. And that really means that we have seen very, very few of these to date. In fact, whenever we've looked and searched for who the underpin is applied to, we've only been able to find one member. So far the underpin hasn't really had a big impact. But, you know, given what is proposed within the consultation, that could change. Okay, could I have the next slide, please? So what is the department proposing? They went out to consultation on the 11th of November, and within their consultation, they've stated that the intention is to remove the unlawful discrimination. So they want to take away that age discrimination that's caused by the underpin. And they also have stated that they want to be careful not to create new differences in treatment. So they don't want to expose, if you like, the local government scheme to more cases in the future because of how the underpin is constructed. They also want to be sure that it's effective and it's consistent. Now, what I've been told is that whenever you try to remove something like this, you have to bring everyone else up. You can't just bring everyone else down. So I think inevitably what this means is it will increase the complexity of the scheme. So next slide, please. Okay, so this slide is aiming to show the difference between the current underpin that we have and what is proposed. So the first thing is who qualifies. So under the current underpin, as I've said, it's active contributing members who were aged 55 or over in the 31st of March 2012 and active on the 1st of April 2015, and they were within 10 years of their normal retirement age. And they can't have had a break of more than 5 years in public service pension scheme membership after the 31st of March 2012. So it's quite a lot of conditions in there, but really in a nutshell, it's somebody aged 55 or over on the 31st of March that has stayed in the scheme. What is proposed under the new underpin is that it will apply to everyone who was an active contributing member in the 31st of March 2012, and also anyone they also have to have had care membership after March 15. So they don't have to have been active on the 1st of April 15, but they do have to build up care membership. And similar to before, they can't have a break of more than 5 years in public service pension schemes after the 31st of March 2012. So what is the key differences here? The current underpin, you have to be aged 55 or over. The proposed one, it's anybody. The difference that makes to us is that for the old underpin, around about 6,000 people qualified for it. Under the proposed underpin, we're estimating about 36,000 people could qualify. So it's a big, big difference in numbers. The next thing then is the underpin period. What is this period that you're doing the comparison over? The current underpin, it's the period from the 1st of April 15 to the 31st of March 22, or earlier if somebody leaves or dies before that 22 date. And that's exactly the same in what's proposed for the new underpin. So there's no change there. It's a comparison that only takes place over this 7-year period. Any benefits built up after the 31st of March 22 are always care, and there's no comparison. Final salary then. For the current underpin, we use the final salary at the date of leaving with immediate payment of pension. So it only applies to somebody that's going straight from active membership to retirement, or somebody that's dying effectively. And because it applied to people up to age 65, and it was this older cohort, it ended in 2022. So as the current underpin stood, we weren't really going to have to do this comparison after that period. What is proposed is that you use the final salary at the date of leaving or age 65 if later to compare the benefits, and it will end with the last protected member's retirement. So before, where we were only running this underpin for up to 2022, now we could be running it for 3 or 4 decades until that last youngest member retires. The next difference is early and late retirement factors. And these are factors that apply, they're actuarial factors, and probably all of you know that if somebody takes their pension early, it gets reduced. We apply factors to reduce it. If they take it late, it gets increased and factors are applied. The scheme before the 1st of April 15 had a normal retirement age of 65, and that continues to apply to final salary benefits. The new scheme that came in, the care scheme, your normal retirement age in it is equal to your state pension age. So for somebody like me that's been in the scheme for a long time, my final salary service is payable at age 65. If I take it before 65, I get early retirement reduction factors. If I take it after 65, I get increases. But any benefit that I build up under the care scheme isn't payable until I think it's 67. So anything I take before that date in the care scheme will be reduced. So you have people who could fall into, say, at age 66, where some of their final salary benefit will be being increased and some of their care benefit will be being reduced. And it's very, very complicated for our members to understand. Under the current underpin, whenever you apply it and you do that comparison, you ignore any early or late retirement factors. So it really is quite straightforward. You just compare the value of 2 benefits and you pay the higher. What the proposed underpin is saying is we have to look at this when somebody takes their benefits, and we have to take the early and late retirement factors into account before you would pay any top up. So that certainly is complicating it quite considerably for us. Then there's the application of the underpin. So as I've said, the current underpin only applies to someone leaving with an immediate entitlement to benefits. So it's an active member either dying or going straight to retirement. The proposed underpin is much, much wider, and it says you don't have to have an immediate entitlement to pension. So that now includes deferred members. And that's why when we're looking at who this new underpin will apply to, the numbers are so much higher. Okay, could I have the next slide, please? So who is affected? As I've said, it's members who were contributing to the scheme on the 31st of March 2012 and have care membership. Now, as it stands at the moment, somebody who joined the scheme in 2013 or 2014 will not qualify for the underpin. They have to have been active on the 31st of March 2012. So who's it going to apply to? It applies to all the current active members who were in the scheme on the 31st of March 2012. It applies to all leavers from the 1st of April 2015 who were in the scheme on the 31st of March 2012. Any transfers out that we've done that also covered that period, and any deaths from April 15, where again the person was an active member on the 31st of March 2012. And trivial commutations, employers mightn't be familiar with this. This is really where someone retires or leaves with a very small benefit, and instead of getting it paid as a total pension per year, they can trivially commute it. They take it as a one-off lump sum, and that's, if you like, wipes out all their benefits in the scheme. So when we've looked across our records, we've looked across all these different groups of members, we've estimated that it applies to 36,000 members. So it's a huge change for us. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so the consultation. The consultation closes on the 31st of January. There is an email address that employers can respond to. The consultation has multiple questions in it where the department is asking for opinions. NILGOSC has already responded to the consultation, and we've published that response on our website. So we would encourage employers to respond to it, and hopefully you might find our response helpful in at least you know, how we've replied to some of those questions. We also issued a circular earlier in the month to employers, Again, drawing their attention to the consultation, highlighting the closing date, where to respond to, and also that we had published our own response to it. And that circular also covers the data requirements, which Jenna will go through in a few minutes. So that's the end of the section that I want to cover on the background to the consultation and what the impact will be. If you have any questions about that, please post those in the Q&A and we'll answer those at the end. And now I'll hand across to Jenna for the next section.
Okay, good morning everyone. Thank you, Zena. For those of you that don't know myself, I'm Jenna Fisher and I'm the Services Manager here at NILGOSC. So I'm going to cover the information that we unfortunately now require from all of our employing authorities. So the extended underpin that Zena has talked about is really extending that final salary comparison. So for admin purposes, we really are stepping back in time regarding the administration of the scheme, and that's for both NILGOSC and all of our employing authorities. Now, Zena gave us some good news. It's not for all of our members, but it is quite a lot at around 36,000. So the information that we will require is really a complete membership history. And what I mean by a complete membership history is the hour changes, any term time week changes. So some of our employing authorities, their staff don't work 52 weeks of the year. They're maybe linked with schools, so they do. They're linked with term time. So any changes in weeks will also now are required, and also service breaks. But we are looking for service breaks that remain unpaid. So when a member takes a service break or takes some sort of unauthorised leave, they can decide to take out an additional pension contract, or an APC for short. And they can then pay back that lost pension. So for the service breaks, we are only looking for those that remain unpaid. We are making assumptions with some of this data that we're asking from our employers, in that we are assuming that all of our employers have already provided that complete membership history up until the 31st of March 2015. So as Zena mentioned, the scheme changed from a final salary scheme to a care scheme on the 1st of April 15. And rightly or wrongly, NILGOSC took the decision that we wouldn't no longer collect those hour changes or those breaks, because for a care scheme, that wasn't required, and that wasn't required for the administration, apart from those members that fell into the old underpin, if you like. And for those familiar with the LGS 25, which is the hour changes form, you'll know that there are 3 little bullet points at the top of that form, which explains the members that we need those hour changes for. So if a member leaves, at the moment, we have already revised the LGS 15, which is the leavers form, which I know everybody loves. So that is available on our website. I would just ask, it is mentioned again in the circular, but if you get rid of all of the old stock and you start using that new LGS 15, and that then has been amended to ask for this complete membership history before your templates are sent into us. So that will just help us out between now and 2021. The hour changes and the complete membership history is required going forward, and it's required from the 1st of April 2015 up until the 31st of March 2022, or earlier if the member leaves or retires. Next slide, please. Okay, so hopefully this isn't a picture of myself. So as seen as previously mentioned, the proposed changes is going to increase the complexity of the scheme, and we all know that the scheme is already complex, but it also is going to increase the administrative burden on NILGOSC, but also on all of our employing authorities. And that's why we're doing this today, but we're asking for employers to highlight that administrative burden when you respond to the consultation. So there now is a huge task in front of us all, in that we have to fill the gap of the missing data. So we're looking for that information from the 1st of April 2015 up until the 31st of March 2022. Zena mentioned previously that this was a complaint from 2 members, but not of the LGPS. So these changes are sweeping changes across all of the public sector pension schemes. It's not just an LGPS specific. But what the LGPS has done is that they have got together. So there's Northern Ireland, England, Wales and Scotland, and we have come up with a template, an FAQ and help notes, which has already been sent out to yourselves at the start of December. Our plan then is to issue all of our employing authorities with a pre-populated template, so similar to what we do at annual return times. Our intention then is once that data is returned to us, that we will have some sort of an interface that we obviously can electronically upload that data. But with anything between ourselves and yourselves, there no doubt will be queries. So we don't think for 1 second that we'll be able just to push a button and that data will go on. There no doubt will be some queries that we'll have to work together on. We are expecting all of our employing authorities to provide this data. This is going to be legislative changes, and therefore we are required to have this data. Okay, so moving on then to the template. This has already been issued out to yourself, so hopefully you've had an opportunity to have a look at it before today. So it's an Excel spreadsheet and it's split into 2 worksheets. So the first worksheet is the part-time hours and the weeks data, and then the second template is, the second worksheet is the service break data. So looking at the data fields 1 to 11, that's probably the most straightforward data fields, because they are the data fields that we will populate for yourself. So when you receive the template back from NILGOSC, this data will be populated, and this will be the members that we have already identified as being in scope, if you like, of having this new protection. So data fields 1 to 11 will be pre-populated, and that's obviously going to be straight from our own pensions admin system based on information that the employers have already provided. Data field 11 is either C, and that's for contributing members. So that is members that, according to our system, are still active in the post that we're looking for the information of. Zena's mentioned that this doesn't just cover active members, it also is looking at leavers that were in scope. So we are going to require some information for people that have now left. Data fields 12 to 15F then are where all our employing authorities then are going to have to fill in the data. If you're used to filling the LGS 25 form, which is the R change form, it basically is the same data that we ask for, only in a template format. So it's asking for when the R changes started. If the person's still doing those R's, but then obviously you leave data field 13 blank. Data field 14 will be straightforward. They'll all be a P for part-time. Data field 15, this is it's not a mandatory field, as I say. This is a template that nationally all of the LGPS funds are using, and obviously over in the mainland they do things slightly different to ourselves. So where we have there as an example the 50%, that doesn't have to be filled in as long as 15A and 15B are filled in, which is again what you'll be used to filling in on the LGS 25. So 17.5 if somebody's that's their part-time hours, and their full-time equivalent is 37, then that's what you need to put in. You don't need to do the 50%. Our system can do that itself. 15C and 15D then are for the employing authorities that have term time workers. So again, that mightn't apply to all of our employing authorities. 15E and F, this will also be pre-populated by NILGOSC. And as I said at the start of my presentation, we are assuming that all our R changes were up to date to the 31st of March 15. So you should see a date post the 31st of March 15. So really that is your starting point. That is where the missing data needs to start from. Next slide, please. What I should have said there, actually, if somebody has more than one R change, and we know some of our employing authorities, they have many R changes, if you put the earliest first, and then obviously close it off, and then take a new line and just do it then in chronological order, that would be great. Hopefully that will stop any rejects then from our system. So moving on to the service breaks, as I said, we're looking only here for members where they haven't paid. So if somebody had a service break but they did purchase that lost pension by taking out an APC, then that can be ignored. Okay, so the first 11 data fields are exactly the same as the part-time hour spreadsheet, and that will be pre-populated by NILGOSC. So data fields 16 and 17 are simply when the break started and when the break ended. Data field 18 then is your reason for your break. So it's A, B or C. A if it was an authorised break, B if it was a trade dispute, and C if it was unauthorised. And obviously what I'm saying this morning is all in the help notes. Again then, part-time, we'll need to look at part-time hours for somebody that has a service break as well. So data field 19 doesn't need to be filled in if data field 19 A and B are in, and we're asking that A and B is filled in rather than data field 19. Data field 20 and 21 probably are a little bit confusing, to be honest, and I don't think it will apply to many of your staff. So it's asking, data field 20 is asking, did the member elect to purchase the pension in full? And it's either yes or no. I would imagine that most of the staff will have elected to purchase that in full, so obviously the answer is yes. The only thing I was thinking, maybe if somebody has an extended career break, some of our employers maybe allow a 5-year career break, but under the regulations then the cost to purchase that on a shared basis between the member and the employer is limited to 3. So somebody maybe has taken a 5-year career break but may only have decided to purchase the first 3 years because that's where the employer also helps the cost. So there may be a few of those, but I wouldn't expect there to be too many. Next slide, please. Okay, so what are the deadlines? What are we asking our employers to do? So as I said before, we are going to try to manage this project similar to how we would do the annual return project, and you'll be familiar with that. And we have set up a new inbox in NILGOSC, which is datacollection@nilgosc.org.uk, and that's specifically then for this McCloud project. So the first deadline then is the 18th of December, which is two days away, but this was all detailed in the circular, obviously. So we're asking then for our employers to email the data collection inbox with the staff member in each employing authority of who you would like that data to go to. And obviously the data that we're sending, it is quite huge, quite a lot of personal data. So we're asking that must be a signatory that we hold in NILGOSC, and we obviously will send that to that authorised signatory via secure email. The plan then for NILGOSC is once we have all of the contacts, we will then email that back out to yourself. So that's going to be really from after Christmas up until the end of January is what our aim will be. We're then asking all our employers to obviously work on this, and we would like the template back again to the data collection inbox, and that's for June 2021. We do realise this is a significant administration burden on yourselves, and that's why we are asking you obviously to please respond to the department on the consultation. And given the number of members involved and the scale of the exercise, we would appreciate the data by this date. Now, some of our employing authorities are very keen and very eager, so we have started to work with some of our employers about gathering the data. So if that's one of your yourself and you think I could get the data much quicker, we would love that, and please come and contact myself or Zena if you would like to work on that with us and have that before the 30th of June. Next slide, please. Okay, so just some more useful links. Obviously, the NILGOSC website, we always upload any information on there. So the McCloud court case, if you would like further information or background information on that is on the NILGOSC website. And also there's an FAQ if you're getting some questions maybe from your staff. That FAQ should help you. And again, then we've just referenced the consultation and the department's website. And just again, some more useful links. That's our NILGOSC website. You can email the info box if you have any information or any queries. And also, Templeton House is open, so we are here manning calls, and that's the main switchboard number. So we're going to move on to the questions. Hopefully there has been some questions you found today useful. Hopefully somebody in the communications team will have posted a feedback form, and that will be going into the Q&A. This is obviously the first time that Zena and I have held a live MS Teams event, so we're definitely not experts at this. So we would love some feedback. Hopefully it's all good, but all feedback is welcome. Obviously we don't know what's happening in the future, so we may have to hold similar events going forward into 2021. So some feedback would be really appreciated. For anybody technical, there will be a QR code as well that pops up on the slide that you can use that to provide your feedback. I'll just hand over then to Zena to see if she has had any questions on her part of the presentation.
Thanks, Jenna. What Jen and I are going to do is split the questions. So I'll take the ones that relate to the consultation, and Jenna, unfortunately, I think most of the ones so far seem to be for Jenna. We'll have the ones relating to the spreadsheets and the data collection. But the first question is, somebody has asked, will the NILGOSC pension online portal be adapted in due course to provide members with a comparator forecast based on both care or final salary where that applies? For anyone that has read the consultation, this is an area at the moment where there's some debate. There has already been a consultation out in England and Wales, and in it was, and in our own consultation, it is proposed that the benefit statements each year would actually show this underpin. Any of the administrators, like ourselves, will have responded saying we don't agree with that, and the reason is because you only ever will see this at a point in time, and we don't actually know whether the underpin will apply until someone actually leaves or retires. So what you could be doing if you actually are showing it year on year is you could be giving someone a false impression on the benefits they're actually going to get, whereas it's always just at the point they leave, draw their benefits or die. So with regard, and the other problem that our software providers have is clearly this is a huge unknown area at the moment. It's out for consultation. They have told us that they won't begin software programming until the department makes regulations, or they're very clear on exactly how the underpin is going to be constructed. I would hope that our online portal will certainly highlight if someone is a protected member. So it may just say you are protected and the underpin applies to you. I don't know at this stage whether it will actually give a comparator forecast. And certainly, as we've tried to explain so far, there are very, very few members that this is applied to. The people that I expected would apply to, if the final underpin ends up the way it is in the consultation, will be those very young members now who actually have quite a low pay, but by the time they retire in 30 or 40 years, that final salary benefit could be more valuable on a final salary pay. So it's almost the reverse of the position that we have at the moment. So it's a long-winded answer to really say I don't know at the minute, but I'll let Jenna maybe come in on the next couple of questions because I think they relate more to data collection.
Okay, thank you, Zena. So the first question is about the LGS 15. So the LGS 15 has been amended, and that is to collect the sort of the membership data for anybody not between now and you submit your template. So once you have submitted the template, then you wouldn't need to keep completing that membership history. So it's only between now and you submit your template that you would need to complete that relevant section in the LGS 15. The next question is, the slide suggests that you need all periods of unpaid breaks. Does this then imply where an officer has been on unpaid leave for a few days a year since 2015? And I think that's probably somebody maybe in the Education Authority where they have taken little toady breaks. So yes, we need a complete service history. So if somebody has had 2 days in 15, 3 days in 16, 17, etc., and the APC hasn't been paid, well then yes, we're going to need those service breaks. And I think the next question, just scroll down, is about parental leave. So is a parental leave break that an employee and employer has paid an APC to regarded as a service break? Technically, yes, it is a service break, but if the break has been paid for, then we don't need that data back in the service break template. It is only somebody that has had a break and they haven't taken an APC out, or they haven't paid it in full, which, as I said previously, should be very little. People, usually the service breaks were for quite small periods of time, so the pension lost was toady, and it was obviously paid as a lump sum and paid in full. It would only be probably the regular ones where maybe somebody had decided to pay for 2 years and after 18 months decided not to pay it. So I think that's all of the questions, Ina. I don't see any new ones in.
No, I think that's it. Okay.
So I'd just like to end then to say thank you for attending today. Hopefully you have found it useful. As Ina mentioned at the start, this has been recorded and it will be put onto the NILGOSC website shortly. So if there was someone maybe in your employing authority that wasn't able to watch it and will be responsible for this ongoing administration, then at least they'll be able to watch it in due course. Please give us some feedback, as I mentioned, and that's the QR code for those if you want to use that. So that's all for today. I'd just like to say thank you on behalf of Zina and myself, and on behalf of all of the staff then at NILGOSC, just want to wish everybody a happy Christmas and a peaceful New Year. Thank you.
Thank you.